The aisle. This hour we hear from the Democrats. Congressman Joe Sestak out of Pennsylvania, alive with me on the Hill. He's currently running for the U.S. Senate in the Keystone State against Pat Toomey. And sir, good morning to you. Will Democrats make a move on taxes before the first of the year?
Don't know. I'm not in the deep freeze of the Senate yet, and that's unfortunately is where the action is going to have to probably be certain in order to do so.
But you're out there every day. You're in the towns. You're talking to people in Pennsylvania because you want to go to the Senate. Should it act? Is this the time?
Oh, I think without a question, we have to extend those tax cuts that affect the average working family. Look, we just came out of an administration that was pro-deficit as they tripled our national debt. Now we know people were slammed into a recession. And we were able to extend their unemployment checks, and people fought that. So should we extend those kinds of tax credits for those who are trying to work and those who are working without any question?
Would you do this for every American who pays taxes, even the wealthy?
Well, I come from the U.S. military, and I kind of try to look at the facts and what's fair. So I look at the last 8 years, see that the top 1%, the very wealthy, got 55% of all the tax cuts. As I sit here and say, boy, this is a pretty tough time. We don't want to necessarily add to our deficit here. Well, maybe we can take a little bit of that money there in order to not extend those and add another $700 billion to our deficit by benefiting those who did pretty darn well under the Bush administration.
So you'd allow the top bracket to continue to be taxed at a higher rate? That's your conclusion?
Let me give you an example of how you might do this. Let's take the estate tax. I don't think we should go back to 2001 and just because someone makes $1 million, tax it at 50%. Let's be fair. Let's have a family, a couple, not get taxed until you're above $7 million. And then guess what? That would only involve 7,000 families getting taxed across America, the billionaires, those multimillionaires. You know, and so I think we should be fair at a time that the crew of the ship, those sailors, those day-to-day working families have been slammed.
But what you're just saying is that every American should be able to take advantage of the same tax rates. Well, that's what you just said, right?
No, what I said was, let's be fair. Let's make sure that those who got the benefit of 55% of every dollar we gave in a tax cut, they got 50 cents on the dollar. Let's make sure that at this time that we don't add to the national debt by giving them another 50 cents on the dollar.
Do you think it's justified for any taxpayer to give more than 50% of their salary to the government? Is that right?
Well, you know, we've done pretty well. You remember those Reagan era and
is that a yes or
back
no?
to 20, 30 years when it was 70. Look, I don't think if it was a perfect world and we didn't have to have a military, we didn't need roads, we probably wouldn't even have to have taxes. But the point of the fact is here, let's be common sense about this. We got a national debt. It's an albatross around the necks of our children. We got infrastructure challenges. We need some revenues in order to address it. But what we should do is give tax cuts, tax credits to small businesses, not big corporations.
I'm going to take your answer. I'm going to take your answer as a yes, and you'll defend that to the voters in Pennsylvania. But in addition to this, this is not an argument or a debate. I'm sorry, I just want to squeeze this in. We're crunched by time. This is not a debate about the rich and the less wealthy in America. $1,000 per child tax credit. Next year you get $500 in that tax credit. If you run a small business, you pay 35% in federal taxes. What Mike Pence claims. Next year you have to pay nearly 40%. You own a family farm, he says. You see death taxes rise from 0 to 55% in 1 year. Why is that right for anyone, especially given what we're facing with our economy?
But that's why I said, Bill, that's why I said the estate tax shouldn't go to that. We should exempt up to $7 million.
What about the first 2 points we mentioned here? Small businesses, child tax credit.
Okay, and that's why I proposed a 15% tax cut for every new payroll job that a small business does. But Bill, look, I can't favor the wealthy like you do. Those top 7,000 families, the millionaires and multi-billionaires, if you want to give them more in tax benefits, in a belief that wealth might trickle down. Look at the last 8 years where wealth didn't trickle down. We created 0 jobs during the Bush administration.
I'm not here arguing on behalf of anybody. Let's be clear on that. I talked about all Americans, and I laid out my argument, my debate there. I'm not here to argue for anyone. I just want to know where you stand or where you're going to put the Pennsylvania voters come November when they make a decision on our political future. Sir, I want one more question, and I know part of the reason you came on today was to talk about what's happening with this WikiLeaks story about Afghanistan and Iraq, and I know you want to get a chance to weigh in on that. And the 30 seconds I have left, please. Where do we stand with the release of these documents and how it may endanger our war efforts in those countries?
Well, I think it's important because it talks about Pakistan. And the only reason we're in Afghanistan today is to help seal the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Because in a closed hearing, Secretary Gates said a primary reason why we are having an increase in troops is to seal that border so that Pakistan, as it goes after the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, which is the sole reason we're really in Afghanistan is to exterminate Al-Qaeda, will be convinced the Taliban won't flow away from there into Afghanistan. So what this says is that the Pakistanis were somewhat involved with the creature that they created the Taliban. Now it went after them. And so now what we have to do is work with Pakistan to exterminate Al-Qaeda.
We're going to get a bit more on this in about 15 minutes away. Joe Sestak, thank you for your time from the Hill.
It's great to be on with you again,
Always good to debate with you. Thank you, sir. More in a moment right here on America's Newsroom. Thanks again.